The stage lights were gone, but the ghosts of applause still haunted Lila Montgomery. She stood at the counter of a rundown Nashville dive bar, her trembling fingers clutching a credit card that screamed rejection with every swipe. Declined, the bartender muttered, and Lila's world tilted, her past as a country music darling crumbling like the cheap whiskey bottles lining the shelf. It wasn't supposed to end like this. 5 years ago, Lila was Tennessee's golden girl. Her voice a honey drawl that packed stadiums and topped charts. But secrets have a way of clawing their way out, and hers, buried deep beneath rhinestone smiles and carefully crafted lies, had cost her everything. She glanced around the bar, half expecting the regulars to recognize her, to whisper her name like they used to. Instead, they nursed their drinks, oblivious to the woman who'd once sung their heartbreak into anthems. The air smelled of stale beer and regret, and Lila felt both seeping into her bones. "Try another card," the bartender said, her voice softer now, tinged with something like pity. Lila met her eyes, warm, brown, and steady, and felt a jolt she hadn't known in years. The bartender, Emery Quinn, was younger, maybe late 20s, with a streak of purple in her dark hair and a quiet strength that made Lila's chest ache. Emery didn't look at her like a has-been. She looked at her like she was seen. "I don't have another," Lila admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Shame burned her cheeks. She'd sold her last guitar to pay rent, and the royalty checks had dried up when her label dropped her. The scandal had been swift and brutal. A tabloid photo, a stolen kiss, and the world turned on her. Lesbian. The word had been a weapon, wielded by fans who'd once screamed her name in adoration. Nashville didn't forgive, and neither did her family. Emery leaned forward, her elbows on the counter. "Hey, it's okay. I'll cover it." Her smile was small but genuine, and Lila's throat tightened. She hadn't felt kindness in so long it almost hurt. "You don't have to," Lila started, but Emery waved her off. "I want to. Looks like you could use a break." She poured a glass of whiskey, neat, and slid it across the counter. "On the house." Lila stared at the amber liquid, her reflection distorted in the glass. She wanted to tell Emery everything. How she'd lost her career, her home, her identity, all because she'd loved a woman and refused to deny it. But the words stayed locked inside, where they'd festered for years. Instead, she took the glass, her fingers brushing Emery's, and the brief contact sent a shiver through her. The bar was quiet that night, save for the low hum of a jukebox playing some forgotten Patsy Cline tune. Lila sipped the whiskey, letting it burn away the edges of her fear. Emery moved with ease behind the counter, wiping glasses, her movements steady but her eyes flicking back to Lila. There was something unspoken between them, a current that felt dangerous and alive. "You from around here?" Emery asked, breaking the silence. "Used to be," Lila said, her voice rough. "Nashville born and bred." "You?" "Memphis. Moved here for, well, a fresh start." Emery's smile faltered, and Lila caught a glimpse of her own pain mirrored in those brown eyes. She wanted to ask more, to peel back the layers of this woman who'd shown her kindness when she deserved none. But before she could, the door swung open, and a little girl burst in, her pigtails bouncing. "Emery!" the girl squealed, darting to the counter. She was maybe 7, with wide blue eyes and a gap-toothed grin. A woman followed, older, with a tired face and a nurse's scrubs. "Sorry, Em," the woman said. "Clara insisted on seeing you before bedtime." Emery laughed, scooping the girl into a hug. "No trouble at all, Sarah. How's my favorite kiddo?" Clara giggled, then turned her gaze to Lila. Her small face lit up with recognition. "Hey, you're the lady from the radio. My mom used to play your songs all the time." Lila froze, her heart pounding. She hadn't been recognized in years, not since she'd faded into obscurity. The bar seemed to shrink, the walls closing in. You must be mistaken," she stammered, but Clara shook her head. "No way. You're Lila Montgomery. I know your voice anywhere." Clara's enthusiasm was a knife, cutting through Lila's carefully built defenses. Sarah, the girl's mother, looked at Lila with sudden interest, and the weight of exposure pressed down on her. Emery's eyes darted between them, curiosity flickering. "You're that Lila Montgomery?" she asked, her tone free of judgment but heavy with intrigue. Lila's instinct was to run, to flee before the questions came, before the truth she'd hidden for years spilled out. But Clara's bright eyes held her in place, and Emery's steady gaze anchored her. For the first time in years she didn't want to disappear. "I was," Lila said finally, her voice barely audible. "Not anymore." The silence that followed was thick but not unkind. Emery leaned closer, her voice low. "Sounds like there's a story there." Lila met her gaze and something inside her cracked open. Maybe it was the whiskey, or the weight of Clara's innocent recognition, or the way Emery looked at her like she was more than her mistakes. Whatever it was, Lila felt the first stirrings of something she'd thought was gone forever: hope. As Clara chattered about her favorite Lila Montgomery song, Lila's mind raced. She'd spent years running from her truth, but here in this dive bar with a kind stranger and a little girl who still believed in her, she wondered if she could stop, if she could let someone in, if she could love again. The night stretched on and Lila stayed, drawn to Emery's warmth and Clara's unfiltered joy. She didn't know it yet, but this moment, this bar, this chance encounter, was the beginning of everything. The Nashville skyline glittered beyond the bar's grimy windows, a cruel reminder of the city that had once crowned Lila its queen. She sat at the counter, nursing her second whiskey, her eyes tracing the lines of Emery's face as she worked. There was a rhythm to Emery's movements, a quiet grace that made Lila's heart stutter, and she hated how much it scared her. Clara had left with her mother, but not before extracting a promise from Lila to sing for her someday. The request had hit like a punch, stirring memories of stages and spotlights, of fans who'd loved her until they didn't. Lila's fall hadn't just been professional, it was personal, a betrayal by those closest to her. Her parents, devout and unyielding, had called her sin personified. Her fiancé, Jess, had walked away when the headlines grew too loud. Lila had learned to lock her heart away, but Emery's kindness was picking at the edges. "You don't talk much, do you?" Emery said, sliding a bowl of peanuts toward Lila. Her tone was teasing, but her eyes were searching. "Not much to say," Lila replied, forcing a smile. "What about you? What's a Memphis girl doing in a place like this?" Emery laughed, a sound that warmed the air. "This place ain't so bad. Pays the bills and I get to meet interesting people." She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "Like fallen country stars with stories they're too scared to tell." Lila's breath caught. Emery's directness was disarming, and it stirred something dangerous, a longing to be known. "You don't pull punches, do you? Life's too short for that." Emery's gaze held hers, unflinching. "So what's your deal, Lila Montgomery? Why's a woman with a voice like yours hiding in a bar like mine?" Lila wanted to deflect, to bury the truth under another lie. But the weight of Emery's attention, the way she seemed to see through her, made it impossible. "I lost everything," she said, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "My career, my family, my love. All because I couldn't be what they wanted." Emery's expression softened, but she didn't look away. "What did they want?" "Someone straight," Lila said, her voice breaking. She waited for Emery to recoil, to judge, but instead Emery reached across the counter, her hand resting near Lila's. "That's their loss," Emery said quietly. "Not yours." The words landed like a lifeline, and Lila clung to them. She didn't know Emery's story, but the empathy in her eyes suggested she'd fought her own battles. Before Lila could ask, the door swung open, and a group of rowdy regulars stumbled in, their laughter shattering the moment. Emery slipped back into bartender mode, but not before giving Lila a look that said this wasn't over. As the night wore on, Lila watched her work, marveling at how Emery navigated the chaos with ease. She was magnetic, drawing smiles from even the gruffest patrons, and Lila felt a pang of envy. Emery was free in a way Lila hadn't been in years. Hours later, as the bar emptied, Emery sat beside Lila, a bottle of water in her hand. "You didn't run," she said, a playful edge to her voice. "I half expected you to bolt after Clara outed you." Lila chuckled, the sound rusty. "Thought about it. But I don't know. Something about this place feels safe." Emery's smile was soft, almost shy. "Good. You deserve that." They talked until the early hours, the conversation weaving through light and heavy moments. Emery shared bits of her life. Growing up in a strict Memphis household, coming out at 19, finding solace in Nashville's quieter corners. Lila listened, her guard lowering with every word. She hadn't realized how much she craved connection until now. As dawn crept through the windows, Emery offered to drive Lila home. The ride was quiet, the city waking around them, and Lila felt a flicker of something she hadn't dared to name. When they reached her rundown apartment, Emery turned to her. "You're not alone, you know. Not anymore." Lila's heart pounded, and for a moment, she considered leaning in, closing the distance between them. But fear held her back, and she only nodded. "Thanks, Emery. For everything." As Emery drove away, Lila stood on the cracked sidewalk, the weight of her past still heavy but no longer crushing. She didn't know what came next, but for the first time in years she wanted to find out. The Nashville sun beat down on Lila's apartment complex, a maze of peeling paint and broken dreams. She stood in her cramped living room, staring at a faded poster of her first album, the girl in the photo a stranger with bright eyes and a fearless smile. That girl was gone, but Emery's words from the night before echoed in her mind. "You're not alone." Lila hadn't slept. She'd spent the night replaying their conversation. The way Emery's laughter had felt like a melody she wanted to learn. It was dangerous, this pull toward her. Lila had loved before, and it had nearly destroyed her. But Emery was different. Steady, unapologetic, and unafraid. Lila envied that freedom, and she wanted to be near it, to let it thaw the parts of her that had gone cold. Her phone buzzed, a rare sound these days. It was a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Emery. Claire's been begging to hear you sing. Wanna come by the bar later?" Lila's heart leapt, then sank. Singing meant exposing herself, risking recognition, judgment. But the thought of seeing Emery again, of maybe finding a piece of who she used to be, was too tempting. She arrived at the bar that evening, her old acoustic guitar slung over her shoulder. The place was busier, a mix of locals and tourists, and Emery was behind the counter, her smile lighting up the room. Clara was there too, perched on a stool, her eyes wide with excitement. "You brought it," Clara squealed, pointing at the guitar. "You're gonna sing, right?" Lila hesitated, her fingers tightening around the guitar strap. "Maybe just one song," she said, her voice unsteady. Emery caught her eye, offering a nod that felt like a promise. The bar quieted as Lila took a stool near the jukebox, her guitar resting on her knee. She hadn't performed in years, not since the scandal had stripped her bare. But Clara's hopeful gaze and Emery's quiet encouragement gave her courage. She strummed a chord, the sound raw and familiar, and began to sing. A soft, aching ballad she'd written in her darkest days. Her voice filled the room, carrying the weight of her pain and resilience. The patrons stopped talking, their eyes fixed on her, and for a moment Lila was that girl from the poster again. When she finished, the room erupted in applause, and Clara clapped wildly, shouting, "You're amazing!" Emery's eyes shone with something Lila couldn't name. Pride, maybe, or something deeper. "You've still got it," she said, her voice low and warm. Lila's cheeks flushed, but before she could respond, a man at the bar stood, his face twisted with recognition. "Lila Montgomery? Thought you crawled into a hole after that mess with your girlfriend." His tone was mocking, and the air shifted, tension crackling. Lila's stomach dropped. She'd known this could happen, but the sting was fresh. She opened her mouth to speak, but Emery was faster, stepping between them. "Hey pal, how about you keep it civil or take it outside?" The man sneered but backed down, muttering as he left. The bar resumed its chatter, but Lila felt exposed, her past a shadow she couldn't outrun. She packed her guitar, ready to flee, but Emery grabbed her hand. "Don't let him win," Emery said, her grip firm. "You're stronger than that." Lila wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at her. She pulled away, mumbling an excuse, and left the bar, the night air cool against her burning skin. She walked the streets of Nashville, her guitar heavy on her back, her mind a tangle of fear and longing. Emery's touch lingered, a reminder of what she could have if she were brave enough. Back at her apartment, Lila sat on the floor, her guitar in her lap. She strummed softly, the notes forming a new song, one about redemption and second chances. It was for Emery, she realized, and the thought both terrified and thrilled her. She didn't know if she could open her heart again, but for the first time she wanted to try. Lila's apartment felt smaller each day, the walls closing in like the judgment she'd fled. She hadn't returned to the bar in a week, not since the man's words had sliced through her fragile courage. But Emery's texts kept coming, gentle, persistent. each one a thread pulling Lila back from the edge. Miss you at the bar. Clara's asking for you. You okay? I'm here if you need me. Wrote a song yet? Bet it's a hit. Lila read them over and over, her heart warring with her fear. She wanted to see Emery, to feel that spark again. But every step toward her felt like a step toward exposure. Nashville wasn't kind to women like her, and the scars of her past still burned. On a rainy Tuesday, Lila found herself at the bar's door, her guitar case damp from the drizzle. She hadn't planned to come, but her feet had carried her here, drawn by a need she couldn't name. Inside, Emery was wiping down the counter, her purple-streaked hair catching the neon light. When she saw Lila, her face lit up and Lila's resolve wavered. You're back, Emery said, her voice warm but cautious. Thought I scared you off. Not you, Lila said, setting her guitar down. Just everything else. Emery nodded, understanding in her eyes. Wanna talk about it? Lila hesitated, then nodded. They sat in a corner booth, the bar quiet in the early afternoon. Lila told her everything, the rise to fame, the love she'd hidden with Jess, the betrayal when the truth came out. She spoke of her parents' rejection, the fans who turned on her, the label that dropped her like she was nothing. Her voice broke as she admitted how she'd stopped singing, stopped living because it hurt too much. Emery listened, her hand resting on Lila's, her touch an anchor. When Lila finished, Emery's eyes were wet. You didn't deserve that, she said fiercely. None of it. Lila's throat tightened. I don't know how to come back from it. You already are, Emery said. You sang last week. You showed up today. That's not nothing. Lila looked at her, really looked, and saw a woman who'd faced her own battles and come out stronger. How do you do it? She asked. Be so open? Emery's smile was bittersweet. Wasn't always. My family didn't take it well when I came out. Lost a lot of people I thought were friends. But I decided I'd rather be alone than hide who I am. Found my people here, Clara, Sarah, this bar. They're my family now. Lila envied that certainty, that strength. She wanted it for herself and she wanted Emery. Her laughter, her courage, her heart. The realization hit hard, and she pulled her hand away, overwhelmed. Emery's expression softened. You don't have to decide anything today, Lila. Just don't run. That night, Lila stayed until closing, helping Emery stack chairs and sweep the floor. They worked in comfortable silence, the air charged with unspoken possibilities. As they locked up, Emery turned to her, her face illuminated by the streetlights. Come back tomorrow. Bring your guitar. Lila nodded, her heart pounding. I will. The next day she did. And the day after that. Slowly, Lila began to reclaim her voice, singing for Clara, for Emery, for herself. The bar became her sanctuary, Emery her safe harbor. But the world outside was still there, waiting to judge, and Lila knew her past wasn't done with her yet. The bar was packed, the air thick with anticipation. Lila stood in the corner, her guitar tuned, her heart racing. Tonight wasn't just another night, it was a showcase, a chance to sing for a small label scouting new talent. Emery had arranged it, her belief in Lila unwavering, and Lila felt both terrified and alive. Clara sat in the front row, her grin wide, Sarah beside her. Emery was behind the counter, her eyes never leaving Lila. The crowd was a mix of regulars and strangers, and Lila knew some recognized her. Whispers had started, rumors of her return, but she pushed them aside. Tonight she wasn't singing for them. She was singing for herself. She stepped to the mic, her voice steady as she began. The songs were new, born from her nights with Emery, her days rediscovering her strength. They were raw, honest about love and loss and rising again. The crowd was silent, then rapturous, their applause washing over her like a tide. As she sang her final note, a woman approached, Marla, from the label. Lila Montgomery, she said, her tone appraising. Heard you had a rough go. But that was something else. We should talk. Lila's heart soared, but before she could respond, a familiar voice cut through the noise. Lila. It was Jess, her ex-fiancé, standing in the doorway, her face a mix of shock and something softer. The bar fell quiet, eyes on them. Lila froze, the past crashing into the present. Jess stepped closer, her voice low. I saw your name online. I needed to see you. Emery moved to Lila's side, her presence steadying. Lila took a breath, her eyes on Jess. You left, she said, her voice calm but firm. When I needed you, you left. Jess's eyes filled with tears. I was scared. I wasn't ready. But I never stopped loving you. The words stung, but they didn't break her. Lila looked at Emery, at Clara, at the life she was building. I've moved on, she said, and meant it. Jess nodded, a sad smile on her face, and left. The crowd murmured, but Lila didn't care. She turned to Emery, her heart full. Thank you, she whispered, for believing in me. Emery's smile was radiant. Always. Later, as the bar emptied, Lila and Emery stood outside, the Nashville sky clear above them. Lila took Emery's hand, her fear gone. I'm done hiding, she said. I want this. Us. Emery's eyes shone. Me too. They kissed, soft and sure, the city humming around them. Clara's voice broke the moment, calling from the door. Lila, you were awesome. Can you teach me guitar? Lila laughed, the sound free and light. Sure thing, kiddo. The truth was out, exposed by a little girl's innocent recognition, but it no longer scared her. Lila was a lesbian, a singer, a survivor. With Emery by her side, she was ready to face the world, to sing her truth, to love without fear. The stage was waiting, and this time she wouldn't fall.